Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Callie, and today I'm going to be going through my August haul. In August, I tried not to get as many books because of a Polycon. I brought home a ton of books from the convention, and I've been slowly making my way through them, but I have been making a relatively good dent. I've read a ton of the books that I got from the convention, as well as started that huge anthology, but I do have a couple of books that I did end up getting throughout the month of August. So, the first one that I have is The Darkening by Sunya. This is actually the Fairy Loot edition. This was the Fairy Loot July book. So I got it right at the beginning of August. And this book is gorgeous with amazing end paper art. It's also got embossing on the cover and has a huge cover change from what is currently in stores. I have read this. You can kind of see my little tabbies in there. They're in there. I really liked this book. This book was a wild ride, and I thought it was going to be a pretty stereotypical YA fantasy. It is not. It took a little bit to understand what was happening within the world, but the characters are really well done, and I cannot wait for the sequel of this book. Up next, I have Twisted Lies by Anna Huang. This is going to start me collecting more Anna Huang books. I read the entire Twisted series over this summer, and I am obsessed with it. I could not pick a favorite of this entire series. I love them. I am really glad that I picked up this one first because the epilogue is just to die for, and I adore this entire series. I'm so glad her new series, which is Kings of Wrath, I believe, we've met the character in these books. He's very, very, very minor, only makes a couple of mentions. But that makes me excited that we'll see our other 4 couples in the Kings of Wrath series. So I highly recommend this. It follows four friends. Each book is a friend. These are, I would consider them on the darker side. We have a princess and the bodyguard trope, brother's best friend's brother, and then we also have slight stalker in this one. But it's okay. I promise. It's not weird. It's a little weird in the beginning, but it's not weird overall. I love this series, so I've been trying to find actual paperback copies of them because I adore them. Up next, I picked up a copy of When Stars Come Out by Scarlett and Clare. I wanted to pick up a copy of this at a Polycon, but they were all sold out every time we were at the bookstore, and Scarlett and Clare did not have books for sale at her table, and this is the only one that I didn't own. So naturally, because she will be at a Polycon next year, I grabbed this so I can read this. Because I'm caught up. I think now I'm only behind 2 books by her, which is her other series, King of Battle and Blood, which I have the audiobook queued up for that. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I'll just be listening to that. And then this one. This was her debut, if I remember correctly, and this is a YA fantasy sci-fi. So not as smutty, but I do really like her characterizations and her plotting, so I have high hopes. Next I have Go Hex Yourself by Jessica Clare. Every time I've gone to the bookstore, this book has been staring at me, and I finally pulled the trigger and grabbed it because there was a huge sale. This is another Kylo and Rey fanfic, but with witches. And I've heard that if you liked The Love Hypothesis, we will like this one. So naturally, I grabbed it. I haven't read this one yet though, so I'm excited, and I've heard good things about it. So next, I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole, and I ended up purchasing The Deal. And I grabbed The Deal, read it. You can see all my tabs are very small, so you can't really see them. I read The Deal, and I fell in love with it. So naturally, I grabbed The Mistake, which I just finished earlier this morning. And then I have The Legacy, which I know is the novella bind-up of all the stories post. I have The Score and The Goal, which I think are the other 2 in this series, on the way, because I am now fully invested in this series, and I love it. This is a romance following college students. All of the male characters are connected as they play hockey together in school. So they're all dealing with being fuck boys essentially, and they find women who put them in their place, and I love that. I've been really enjoying this. Brittany's been trying to get me to read this series for ages, and I'm so glad I finally picked it up. Up next, I have The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez. This is one of her older books, and it is the start of her other series. I don't remember the name of the series off the top of my head, but I fell in love with Abby Jimenez with Part of Your World, and so I've been trying to find all of her other backlist books so that I can devour them all, because I love her writing style. It's very immersive, very character driven. And I read the back of this, and we're following a main female character who found out she cannot have children, so she believes that relationships aren't really worth it. She doesn't want to lead people astray because most people expect marriage and babies. So she just decides to not deal with it. And then she meets the best man at her best friend's wedding, and that plan may have to be put on the back burner. I think it's going to be interesting. I'm curious as to how this topic of not having children, because it is still a topic that people are uncomfortable talking about even today. So very excited, and I know I'm going to like it because I love Abby Jimenez's writing. Speaking of loving an author's writing, I also picked up All My Rage by Sabaa Tahir. I've been meaning to get a copy of this book for ages, and when it went on sale for the Barnes & Noble hardcover sale, I picked it up. This is her contemporary debut, and Sabaa Tahir says she pulled a lot from her personal experience growing up in the States. I'm really excited to dive into something different from her. I adored her Ember in the Ashes series, and I'm excited to see how she goes from that such high fantasy, high stakes to a contemporary. Next I have The Warrior Queen by Emily R. King. This is the fourth book in the 100th Queen Quartet series, whatever you want to call it. I've been slowly reading this series over the past couple of months, and I finally finished book 3 earlier in the month of August, so I naturally ordered a copy of the fourth book. I really liked it. This is a fantasy story about a woman who is chosen to be the 100th queen to the king because it fulfills this weird prophecy of finding a genie. It's a whole thing, but in order to succeed in becoming his 100th queen, she has to fight the other women in order to earn her spot as one of his consorts and being his Rainey. It's super interesting and really intriguing, very different from any YA story I've ever read. And of course she, instead of falling for the guy, the weird abusive guy who wants to summon a genie for his own gain, she starts to fall for her personal guard. So lots of fun tropes going on in this one, and I've been really enjoying it. So I'm excited to see what the fourth book deals with, because the way the third book ended was wild. So intrigued to see how everything gets wrapped up. The last book that I technically have 2 copies of it, and that is Violet Maid of Thorns by Gina Chen. I got one from the Owl Crate and one from the Fairy Loot. Both very pretty. I love the ombre of this one. I read this earlier this month and I adored it. It's still on the top of my list for favorites of the month of August, so I'll probably talk about it later in my wrap-up coming in September. But I did get 2 copies of this. I believe this was the July Owl Crate and then the August Fairy Loot. Very fun, enemies to lovers, high-stakes fantasy story. Very intrigued as to see how that book's gonna, or how that sequel series is gonna go. Because again, I've been reading a lot of books that have just wild concepts and just wild twists and turns just all over the place. But that is it for my August haul. Mainly romance and book boxes, which is totally fine. But because I've been trying to shave down on the book buying and being a lot more specific of what books that I do get. So that's going to be it for today's video. Please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We post videos every Tuesday, Thursday, with the occasional Sunday, and I'll see you guys in our next video. Bye!